Somerset police in formerly Great Britain not only arrested a Christian preacher for preaching the word of God, they also put a girl on trial for hate crimes after she allegedly racially abused her groomer and victimizer. When they're not busy terrorizing the native English, they're running media campaigns to get Muslim women to up them hate crime reportings. Gotta get them numbers up.
What kind of justice system threatens to arrest a pastor for preaching while letting the men who assaulted him walk free?
What kind of justice system? I'll tell you what kind of justice system. The same justice system that arrested and put a girl on trial for racially abusing her assaulter, her blank, you know what.
That's exactly what happened to Pastor Dia Moodley on the streets of Bristol. And his story is a wake-up call for anyone who cares about free speech and equal treatment under the law. Earlier this year, Pastor Dia was preaching peacefully in the city centre, sharing the Christian message and engaging respectfully on the topic of Islam. A crowd gathered, tensions rose, then violence. He was shoved off his ladder, pinned to the ground, and someone threatened to stab him. One man tried to punch his wife. Others attempted to rip the Quran out of his hands, claiming it wasn't his to use. But the police didn't protect the victim. They threatened to arrest him, not his attackers. Officers told him he was breaching the peace not once but twice, and not a single detail was taken from the men who assaulted him. It was only when a senior inspector arrived the situation was corrected and Pastor Dia was told rightly that he would not be arrested. But this wasn't an isolated case. Last year, Pastor Dia was arrested, detained for 13 hours, and had his preaching signs destroyed under police instruction after another peaceful sermon in the city centre. The police later apologised for the destruction of his signs, admitting wrongdoing, but the pattern is clear. Christians are being criminalised for peacefully expressing their faith, while violent threats and assaults are ignored. This is two-tier policing, and it's a direct threat to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the rule of law. ADF International is standing with Pastor Dia as he takes action against Avon and Somerset police, but he shouldn't have to stand alone, because preaching the gospel is not a crime and silence is not an option.
Yes, silence is not an option. Join the resistance peacefully by sharing this video, giving me a follow, or leaving a comment. UK Somerset police dragged a child into court for the hate crime of calling the man who blanked her a slur. Police in Somerset have reported to have neglected the plights of a child blank victims in the cases where the blankist was Muslim. In one incident, a victim of serial child blank was dragged before the court for a racial abuse of her blankist. The case involved two Turkish immigrants who had groomed 6 girls between the ages of 14 and 15. The men, Ahmet Kurdiyemez and Mehmet Sitak, were sentenced to 12 years and 20 years in jail for sexual offenses committed in the area. A report commissioned by the Somerset Safeguarding Children Board, SSBC, stated that there are at least 14 missed opportunities for the two men to be brought to justice, and criticized social services for refusing to investigate concerns raised by the victims when they repeatedly got pregnant. The case review looked at 2 girls whose cases date back to 2010. The duo told investigators that they thought they were in relationships with the adult men who ran a barbershop and piercing studio in Yeovil. The report discovered how possible signs of abuse were missed by authorities whose job it was to safeguard children, including an occasion when a 15-year-old girl had an abortion. It was revealed another girl who had visited by one of the men when she was an inpatient at a mental health hospital in Somerset and became pregnant again. While her blank and the blanks of other girls were ignored, police and social services in Somerset were more concerned about appearing politically correct by giving priority to the so-called hate crime. In mid-July 2011, police intelligence indicated that perpetrator A had sex with children as young as 14 years old, and also mentioned that the relationship with the 16-year-old child Q. The intelligence was disseminated to CSE and the police departments. The next month, perpetrator A reported being verbally and racially abused by Q. However, in November 2011, perpetrator A complained to the police that 16-year-old Q was verbally, racially abusing him. She was charged and at a later trial found not guilty. By this stage, Q had disclosed to police her sexual relationship with perpetrator A, and a police investigation had been initiated. But following her retraction, the investigation was filed as no further action. So let me get this straight. This guy was so comfortable in his offending that he not only reported her to the police, the underage girl that he had groomed and had been abusing, to the police once, he did it twice. And she was put on trial, found not guilty for them 2 reports, and then they closed out the case, even though it was quite out in the open as to this entire situation. The report states that the blankist, identified as perpetrator A, was 29 years old in 2011. His victim was 16 years old. During an investigation of the so-called hate crime, police discovered further evidence that the man was sexually abusing the victim. They were also aware of previous allegations against him and even found child pornography of the girl on his phone. Also, in the search of perpetrator A's property, indecent images of Q were found on A's phone. Moreover, at the time of the incident, perpetrator A was in the street with 6 teenage girls, which should have been viewed as a cause for concern. You think? Given the history of the allegations known to police. However, the police chose instead to prioritize the alleged hate crime of her allegedly calling him a racial slur over the repeated incidences of blank and child sexual exploitation. The police report for this serious case review suggests that on occasion police officers were confused over what was the most important issue to deal with the alleged hate crime overshadowing the real offending taking place around child sexual exploitation. Hate crime is seen as a high priority offense that requires robust action. The prosecution of victims of child blank exploitation for alleged hate crimes against the very people already known to have abused them is a further abuse of the victims and will undermine any trust they might have in authorities. Oh, just for clarification, I don't think hate crimes should exist at all. There's crimes and there's non-crimes. Period. Somerset Police may have learned from its failure to investigate the terrible crimes. Its police force is the stock of mockery on social media, where it routinely threatens internet users for hateful comments right after it posts pictures of its officers sporting painted fingernails for causes like Anti-Slavery Day. Slavery was abolished in the UK in 1833. And guess who stopped world slavery? Guess who stopped international slavery? The British. You know what else is really wild? The fact that this same police force is actively trying to farm hate crime reports from the Islamic community. I know this is a lot of article reading, guys, but this is incredible. This is amazing. I can't believe this. BBC, police encourage Muslim women to report hate crime. Some Muslim women suffer hate crime on an almost daily basis, and police must make them aware they need not accept it, an officer has said. Avon in Somerset, there's them good old Somerset police, said 3/4 of recorded hate crimes towards women in the past 2 years in Bristol were anti-Muslim. What do they mean by hate crime? Superintendent Annie Bennett said, "It is a crime and you don't have to put up with it." Aliyah Hussein, founder of campaigning organization We Rise, said, "All women face barriers when reporting crime." Superintendent Bennett and Ms. Hussein said some victims get so used to being abused they treat it as normal. Racial harassment tended to be carried out by young white men, and that some people assume Muslim women would not be allowed by men to report crimes. Under reporting off the charts. Wow! For something that hasn't happened, or that you supposedly don't know about, it's pretty crazy how it's off the charts. Does anyone see something wrong with that statement? Kind of paradoxical, you think? Contradiction? Anyway, Superintendent Bennett Avon, Somerset Police's hate crime lead, said Islamic women in particular are suffering almost daily verbal harassment, persistent name calling, and intimidation. And this is the area where we really want to smash it. Ms. Hussein from We Rise, which aims to empower Muslim women, said sometimes there's a tendency to treat Muslim women blah blah blah, not blah blah blah. The assumption made by authorities that Muslim blah 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 blah. Superintendent Bennett said, based on the results from the British Crime Survey, police knew there's still a substantial gap between reported and unreported crime, and in some crime categories, it can be as much as 50%. By crime categories, do you mean different types of speech? Different types of insults? The survey, unsurprisingly, shows even higher levels of underreporting for hate crime. Every time I talk to Muslim groups, I can never find anybody who hasn't suffered from some form of hate crime. And therefore, my gut tells me that underreporting is probably off the charts. Sheila Al-Deeb, 72 from Bristol, has been a Muslim for 20 years. She said her experiences range from verbal abuse to physical abuse and damage of her property in previous homes. I'd like to know, what, somebody just randomly beat you up? For some reason, I doubt that. Sometimes I feel that women may be reluctant to report incidents and run the risk of upsetting family members who have been unable to protect them and risk changing the normal patterns of life. Wah, wah. I think most of the hate crime is perpetrated in the street by people passing by. Often we go into shock when it happens because it's unexpected and we don't know what to do. Passing by hate crime. Generally, it's opportunist. If your first language is not English, you think, did I really hear that? Fair game. Superintendent Bennett said the abuse his force dealt with was not just confined to Bristol. Wah, wah. There are mosques in Bridgewater, Yeovil, Taunton Street, Glastonbury, he said, is not unique to Bristol, but amplified by the size of the Muslim community. An incredible amount of hate crime is perpetrated by stranger to the victim. Our positive outcomes in hate crime are incredibly low. If we don't have CCTV or witnesses, it can be difficult. Yet, you guys don't use that CCTV to really solve too many crimes other than hate crimes, do you? Pathetic. The perpetrators of racial harassment tend to be young white men under the age of 25. Perpetrators of hate crime tend to be cowards. They pick on people because they're vulnerable on their own. It's the psychology of the bully. Oh, what about the guy in the previous article? Was he a bully or was his victim a bully? Why, young white men? Hate crime is driven by ignorance. If you were to profile that young white man, they tend to be what I call right-wing. Aliyah Hassan said she'd not experienced anti-Muslim crime because she was not visibly Muslim. I don't wear the headscarf. I've endured racism, but not Islamophobia. Well, take your pick of isms and ists, ladies. But women do wear the headscarf are far more likely to be abused because they're considered fair game. And it's because of the pervasive hostility towards Muslims that is encouraged by right-wing media. Oh, by reporting on the grooming gang phenomenon? Yeah, I'm sure you guys would like that to stop. Alex Rakes from the Stand Against Racism and Equality said they encourage Muslim women to come forward because when they suffer anti-Muslim abuse. And who is SARI? Stand Against Racism and Inequality. It's a snitch line. Oh, also a money grab. Big surprise there. And then they want you to sign up to get spammed. SARI will support any victim whether they want to report to other agencies or not. 35 of SARI's clients are Muslim, so many people are coming forward and clearly Islamophobic abuse is happening all too often. If it's not reported, it can't be stopped. SARI has also set up the Tackling Islamophobia Working Group to ensure agencies such as the police and local authority and Muslim communities work together. So what are Somerset police doing when they're not arresting little girls for racially abusing their abusers? Or arresting Christian preachers trying to preach the word of God? Or trying to canvass the Islamic community for more Muslim women to report hate crimes? What are they doing?
To the people who knew him, Thomas Kettleborough enforced the law. Today he was jailed for breaking it. An inspector for Avon and Somerset Police, an online predator who pretended to be someone he wasn't to prey on teenage boys.
Ha! Wouldn't you know? a British police officer who's not only a PDF file, but a gay man. Big surprise there.
Thomas Kettleborough's online persona and how he presented that he had a clearly identified sexual interest in children, and it was that which is what drew us to obviously seek to investigate him further.
Exeter Crown Court heard today that as well as being a control room inspector, Kettleborough volunteered with children at the Sea Cadets and the Royal Life Saving Society.